Hi everyone, welcome to Kultura podcast. My name is Hazel, and I just want to welcome everyone. As you know, this is a brand new channel. Some of you may know me, and today, really, what I want to do is go over a little bit of what the podcast is going to consist of, but also talk a little bit about myself and what has made me want to do this thing, right? First of all, I just want to say thank you to everyone who has followed me with previous things that I've been doing. I'm really just nervous, to be completely honest, right? But I want to make this as raw as possible to the point where whatever comes out of my mind, it's just what I'm going to say. Like I mentioned, my name is Hazel, and I am actually, y'all don't have to know my age. I actually come from Mexico, and I've been here all my life, right? I always say que soy como la India Maria, ni de aquí ni de allá. But really, that's how I feel. This podcast is going to show a little bit of what I have been through, my opinions. But again, I want it to be more something where people just feel comfortable. So why Mi Cultura? The name that I chose, Mi Cultura podcast, is actually because I have seen how much the Hispanic culture is affected by like taboos and all those things, right? So lo que dicen, lo que debemos o no debemos hacer, the way that we grew up. Some, grew up, our families grew up in other countries and then came here, and it was very different, right? So a lot of you 90s babies may relate to that. So what I really want to do is just talk about how it has affected us, or how it has impacted us, I should say. I know that it took a while to come on again and make this podcast. I had been telling everyone that I was going to start my podcast, that I was ready to go. And I was ready to go. But sometimes life doesn't, go the way we plan it to go. Really, I want you all to learn a little bit about how our culture affects like our actions and what we do, when taking care of ourselves or taking care of others. Going back to the podcast. Originally I was going to start a couple months ago, but unfortunately I wasn't able to. I actually lost my apartment to a fire. Thank God everybody was fine. My doggy, everything was fine. But unfortunately, I did lose a lot of things. Not a lot of people know this. Of course, my family was very supportive during the time, and they also were able to help me get through. I didn't ever have to think, oh, let me find who's gonna help me. Like I knew instantly my family was gonna be there. And that's part of the culture, right? You can go to your family. Some, of course. I was so ready. Like I was ready to start the podcast, and of course things happen, right? And unfortunately, I kept waiting for like this right moment to start my podcast again. I wanted to have everything perfect. I wanted to, make sure that I had everything ready to go. What ended up happening was that unfortunately, because of everything that I have been through in my life, and also just this big impact of losing everything that I've ever worked for, I fell into a depression. And that's actually one of the main reasons why I wanted to start Mi Cultura podcast, because I want to talk about all the taboos and all the stuff that nobody likes to talk about, the raw, like the ugly, the what's keeping us from being our best self, right? And so, for example, mental health, we just have to admit, it is something huge. It is something that is affecting a lot of people, especially now, right? I had been battling with depression for a while, but of course, when I first had the problem with the fire, it hadn't hit me. And so, I was not really in zone with what had just happened. I had lost everything. I was able to save a couple things, but of course, like everything that I had worked for was just gone in one day. I didn't know how to process it during that time, and what I did was like I would joke around about it, or just kind of make fun of it. But now it's been a couple months, and it finally hit me, right? It hit me because I realized that I had lost something huge. But it's not so much about the material things that I lost, it was just the place. I lost my place, my safe space, I should say. And that was one of the reasons why I didn't start the podcast. I kept telling myself, like, you can do this, you can, start and tell everyone that they can do it and blah, blah, blah. But I wasn't living that. I wasn't living that truth. And I'm still a work in progress. I had to really take a step back and realize that it was affecting me, and it had really impacted me to the point where I didn't want to get up from bed. I didn't really want to do a lot of things. I didn't think it was going to affect me that way, let's say, right? Thankfully, I was able to find a home right away. But I do really want this podcast to be something where people can relate to and say, oh my God, I'm not alone in this, right? Especially with our Hispanic culture, there's a huge taboo of mental health, and how if you, especially like older folks, right, where they didn't believe in therapy, they didn't believe in medicine, they didn't believe in a lot of things. And thankfully, as we learn more, we're also learning about other ways that we can take care of ourselves and our mental health. So I want to keep saying that mental health is going to be really, really big on this show. But it's also going to be something where I talk about what everybody doesn't want to talk about, right? So like domestic violence, sexual abuse, it's going to be tough. And I'm not planning on doing this by myself. I will have people come on, and I plan to really have other people's opinion and stories if they decide to share it with us. The difference between this podcast, I want to say, is that I'm going to talk about what unfortunately has affected us as a cultura, has affected us as we are trying to better ourselves. And I want to break the silence of mental health being something bad, and taking care of yourself is being selfish. And I'm really excited, and I really hope that you all understand and see the point of this podcast. Again, I wanted to make this like super cool and have a cool background, but they were just excuses that I was using to like put it off. And finally decided I have to just do it however it comes, and that's it. I'm literally here in my room all by myself. I even kicked my dog out. So if you think of la cultura hispana, right? What's the first thing that comes to your head? It's like family. A lot of us have different views of what our cultura means. But the reason why I wanted to do this show is because I want to talk about what we don't talk in families or with our friends sometimes, and we keep it kind of like in. I want to talk about domestic violence. I want to, of course, mental health. I want to talk about toxic relationships, whether that's with your partner, with your family. The machismo, that's a big thing, whether we like it or not. Of course, I'm going to also try to make things where it's fun enough where you all can send in your questions or whatever it is. I want to make sure that I use this space to educate y'all as well, right? I'm not going to say that I know everything, because of course I don't. But a lot of the times we don't really know what's out there because we have been kept in this little cascarón or whatever you want to call it, right? Las envidias entre gente, how even within our own culture, we don't want to see each other grow. I also want to do Q&As. I'm going to be interviewing some older folks. I want to say, just to get a perspective of like what they used to think. So I'm really excited for this project, and I hope some of you are as well. Before the fire occurred, I actually had already recorded an episode with my best friend, Jenny, and I'm hoping to be able to share that as well, just as like snips, really, because we were planning on doing that before the incident occurred, and I still definitely want to have whoever wants to join me come on the show. Of course, eventually I'll have a better setup, but it's September and I wanted to start off having this month really be the month where I come back, right? And I come back as myself, really. Who is this podcast for? I want to say this podcast is for whoever wants to watch it, right? Whether it's because you want to support me or you don't, it doesn't matter. But mainly, I want everyone to be like, I feel that way too, or relate to it, right? Part of like what I was trying to accomplish here was really show how it is that our society has affected the way we think and we act and all that stuff, right? So as I mentioned, I wanted something like perfect and I wanted it to be, whatever. But I was just getting that idea from like social media. It doesn't have to be like that. It doesn't have to be so perfect. There's no such thing. I still go out a lot and drink and all that stuff. And I can tell you, like, I haven't drank in a really long time and it feels amazing. And that's actually something that I want to talk about later on too, like how is it that we're letting out our the way we feel. And so I'm going to use this as a way for me to tell you all how I feel, tell you all how others feel, and also really just make it about how we can continue growing as a cultura, right? How can we continue being our best selves? I will say some of the things are going to be really, really like raw, and I do apologize in advance. Of course, I will put up any like signs, but I think we have to talk about it, right? Why? Because a lot of people don't understand that it's still going on or that it started happening or whatever. I also have an idea of having a conversation between females and males, right? So I want to hear the opinion of just males sometimes, but also the opinion of just females, and then sometimes like together. So certain topics we'll definitely talk. And it'll be funny at the same time. So again, I'm really looking forward to making this possible and making this actually something that I'm just doing for fun. So please make sure to follow, share, subscribe, whatever. I don't know where the thingy's at. If you're interested in coming on to talk about anything, if you have an idea, just send me a DM, message me on Instagram, and I would be more than happy to have you come on. If you have any ideas of anything you would like to talk about, or maybe have me talk about, let's say, send in your story time, send in your confessions. I'm thinking about doing this thing where you can send in your confessions anonymously, right? On Snapchat, there's this like thing where they interview or ask strangers to just say like their confessions, like who they're secretly in love with or something that they've just been holding on to it. So I'm really looking forward to doing that as well. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. I still gotta get used to like those things. Y pues con eso, like, me despido. I hope you all have a great weekend because it's a Friday and I'm here talking to myself in a mirror. Just kidding. I hope you all enjoy your time and that you all enjoy this video and look forward to some of the conversations that I'm gonna have on here. Peace. Ahí nos vemos. Again, thank you everyone who has asked me about the podcast and has asked me like, what was when I was gonna go on and thank you so much for still supporting me. Make sure you also follow our Instagram page. I guess I'm gonna have to make a Facebook page. I don't know, I'm not a Facebook person. But we'll see how things go. Again, my name is Hazel and I welcome all of you to Mi Kultura podcast. And I hope you all stay safe.